Welcome back to the Watch Later series. Today we're going to be taking a look at my hopes for the next Skylanders project by Takodino642. Now, Skylanders is one of my favorite game series of all time. It's been a huge part of my life since early childhood, and I remain an active member in the community, and discussions on what a potential future Skylanders project could be are a really hot topic in the community, especially since, quite frankly, we're starved for content. The last console game was in 2016. People had mixed thoughts on the Netflix series and the mobile game Ring of Heroes, which was discontinued in 2022. Right now, the only new content we have in the horizon are a series of U2's figures, and that's about all we know about it. So, I'm always interested in hearing what more people have to say about what they would do for an upcoming Skylanders project. Not just a game, but content in general. I think there's some interesting grounds to explore here. So let's see what this particular creator has to say.
With Toys for Bob going indie and still keeping in touch with Microsoft, I feel like this future of Skylanders gets brighter and brighter each day. So
Optimistic. I respect that. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to be optimistic too. Skylanders was like a big fad. It kickstarted Toys to Life, which just dominated the market and made a lot of money, and it's still a cultural icon, and a lot of people played it, but I feel like for a lot of people Skylanders is, if you ask a random person on the street about Skylanders, chances are, well, a random person on the street my age, let's say, on the street about Skylanders, they're probably going to say, oh yeah, I remember playing that when I was younger, that sort of thing. There aren't too many active players right now, mainly just because the people who played it when it was hot grew up. Now they're college aged, like I am, and some of them moved on to other things. Some of them still play it, just don't have as much time to, frankly. There's an audience for it, but I don't know if a full on game is happening very soon. Again, the U2s is a smart decision. I don't know why they're happening now, but I respect the optimism. I don't know if I entirely share it. I'm on the fence.
today, in this video, I want to say my wants and hopes for the next Skylanders game. Remember, this is all in my opinion, and you're entitled to your own opinions. And if you disagree with it, share your own viewpoints in the comments below. Let's get into it.
You naive fool. I pray for you. Yo, Plants vs. Zombies music based. Oh, okay. This right here. This. People talk about this a lot. Some people would say they don't want a Skylanders 7 and just want the. I think. Opinions vary. Some people will say all 6 games remastered. Others will say just the first 3. Some will just say the first 2. It depends on where your nostalgia begins and ends, quite frankly. The main argument for not wanting a Sky 7 is just that Imaginators was horrible, and a lot of people didn't like it, myself included. I think it's, frankly, a disgrace to the series. That's a topic for another day, but I do understand people's reservations for wanting a Sky 7. Let's see what Takodino has to say about it, though.
The first point I would like to cover is whether I would want a remaster or a completely new game. Instead of just discussing one of the options, I'll go over each one. Firstly, a remaster. For a remaster, I would like it to include both
Okay.
Spyro's Adventure and Giants, because those are the
Makes sense.
hardest to play in my opinion, since you need either a Wii, Xbox 360, or PS3. And as a PS4 player, I would like the option to play all the games on the same console.
Okay, technically speaking, Giants got a Wii U port, but that is a good point. You can play the Xbox One ports of Swap Force through Imaginators, but Spyros and Giants did not get Xbox One ports. I think that's actually a good point. That's not what I hear a lot of people bring up in terms of the remastered collections. Props for considering the practicality of it, though.
It would also be the easiest for Toys for Bob to develop because SSA and Giants both use the same engine and share assets. So if they were to do a Spyro Reignited trilogy approach, they wouldn't have to create as many new assets across the two games. I know some people.
Easiest compared to what? Compared to having Swap Force in the remastered collection? I'm not entirely sure what the point is here, because Spyros and Giants have by far the worst graphics in the series. It's not to say they're bad. I do kind of like the art style of those games, which are generally more. They're generally the grittier, more realistic compared to the later games, which do have incredible graphics generally. I mean, Imaginators doesn't because Imaginators does everything wrong. But I feel like it would be harder to get that right because you kind of have to do a pretty major overhaul. They, they're more polygonal, they're less defined, the lighting is worse, that sort of thing. You're going to have to improve a lot of stuff for that. But I mean, it's it will be easier to do that than make a new game because you're going to have to make new models, new lighting, all that anyway if you want to do a new game. So I mean, yeah, I guess that's on the table.
Would like Swap Force to be included in a remaster like this, but I feel like Swap Force holds up really well still.
Yeah.
But my only gripe with Swap Force is that the PS4 pricing for it is outrageous for a 10-year-old game.
Hmm.
So they should re-release the original Swap Force with some touch-ups back to the PS4 and newer consoles like the Switch, PS5, and Xbox 3 Series X. So basically, completely remake SSA and Giants from the ground up and re-release Swap Force with fixes and touch-ups.
Okay. Well, first off, when was this video made? 8 months ago? Okay, I don't remember if the Switch successor was announced by then. By the time a Skylanders remaster comes out, we're most definitely getting it on Switch too. Like, even if that. That's a minor point, but it is something to consider. Which means the only Skylanders game on Switch is going to be the Switch Imaginators port, which is no longer on the eShop and currently goes for $100 a cartridge on eBay. Yeah, Skylanders game prices are weird. I mostly pay attention to the economy of the figures just because, frankly, I care about that more. I have all of the games on the 360, so I'm set. But yeah, the later gen consoles for some of the games can get expensive, mainly just because, well, again, because a lot of people started the series in the first two games, you got it on the generation before, so you could just keep getting the games for the generation before without really too much of a difference. I mean, obviously, some 360 owners would get an Xbox One and then they get the next Skylanders games for the Xbox One, but that's. I feel like that's probably more niche of a case. Swap Force, I think, might be a bit too. It doesn't feel as cohesive as Spyros and Giants to be in a remastered collection, right? Like, Skylanders only had the six mainline console games, not counting the DS games, not counting the mobile games, which are all overall a lot less mainstream. So, if you have 3 out of 6 games in a remastered collection, that's half of them, which is a bit odd to me. I feel like if you can frame Spyros and Giants as the classic games, so to speak, which makes a remaster make more sense. So yeah, I do see the point about Swap Force on modern gen consoles being a bit. It should be more accessible, but I mean, it doesn't. I don't think it fits, in my opinion. The accessibility problem is a weird one. I don't know if he's going to talk about this, but the thing is, if you're accounting for the fact that I wonder how the figures would work. Would you re-release the starter packs, or would you just bank on people using their old figures? This is another topic of discussion that happens in future Skylanders projects. People discuss, well, okay, are they going to make it all digital, and you can use your older figures for bonuses, like Amiibo, sort of? And people will often have a rebuttal to that in that if you make all the characters digital, it kind of ruins the magic of the series. With the other Toys to Life games, you could give them a digital element. In fact, I think Disney Infinity got a later release for PC that does just have all the characters digitally available. But Skylanders capitalized on the Toys to Life concept in a narrative way, in a way that none of the others really did. None of the others are the big four. I mean, there was Skylanders, Lego Dimensions, Amiibo, Disney Infinity. The 4 biggest players in Toys to Life. There were a bunch of others that, frankly, nobody remembers. I eventually do want to collect just every Toys to Life figure ever made, and there are a lot more than you would expect. Suffice it to say, Of those four, Skylanders like developed the figures as a narrative plot point, right? Like they're actual like living breathing characters that got frozen and sent to Earth, and you bring them back with the portal and whatnot. Like that's cool. And I mean, like as a kid you believe that that's real, and then as an adult you like grow to appreciate the artistic merit of the series for 5 of the console games. I should probably moderate myself from trashing on Imaginators, but on the other hand, it's so fun. The artistic merit, like all of the technical work that goes into it. You start listening to developers who talk about how much good of a time it had on it, but that's still a form of magic in and of itself. I guess there's an argument to be made, like, okay, presumably there aren't really a whole lot of young kids who are into Skylanders anymore. A remaster would be for fans who grew up with the series originally, who don't really need the figures to have narrative importance. But again, I do feel like that sacrifices some of the core identity. On the flip side, though, you get if you introduce more figures, that's more stuff that people are going to want to buy. Collectors are sick of this game. You already can't get all of the Skylanders feasibly because of the 5 creation crystals that were unreleased to the public, the prototype Skylander that has functionality in-game but was never publicly released, and the Chase variant that was exclusively made for Tom Brady's son's birthday party. That is not a joke. This series is a mess.
Now, what about a new game? For a new game, this section will probably be short, but I just want a Skylander 7 and I prefer this rather than a remaster.
Why would that section be short? There's a ton of stuff to talk about for a new game. Anyway.
They could cook up a new gimmick, which Octavius has an amazing video of them cooking up 3 new gimmicks that you should go watch after this video.
Oh.
Link in the description. Or take the scrapped year 2 of Imaginators and revive that idea. Because it would be really cool to make quadruped Imaginators and the scrap senseis all look so cool. If a Skylanders 7 were to happen, it would be really cool if they'd made a year 2 for the game, so we don't have to buy a new game with a new gimmick every year, and Toys for Bob wouldn't have to develop a whole new game as well.
Hard agree with that. The yearly release cycle of the console games for Skylanders is what killed the franchise. Like, again, collectors got sick of it because there was just too much stuff coming out. The developers were super overworked, and Trap Team in particular is infamous for being a really unpolished game because they only had 2 years to work on a project that was clearly too ambitious for that little time.
I just really want to see new figures and characters out in the wild again, and make the video games section great again. Which is a great segue to...
Okay, I thought that was going in a very different direction. Yeah, dude, like, if you weren't there for, like, that feeling when you walk into a Toys R Us and you just see massive shelves of Skylanders all in the box waiting for you to choose one to take home.
is to use the remastered models from the remaster and make those into figures. Making sure to give them a new pose as well. Imagine a reignited Spyro. Side note, they'll probably make a new Spyro model to match the Skylanders art style. Having a charging pose in his remastered Series 1 figure. I think new remastered figures would look absolutely gorgeous with the new Toys for Bob style. Now...
So, I kind of like this in theory. I know that, like, it would be cool if we had figures that were, like, aged up designs of classic Skylanders, you know, more mature, more details. That could be cool. But on the other hand, there are already a lot of reposes out there. For those of you unaware, Skylanders introduced in earlier games would, in later games, get the same Skylander released, but they'd get a different pose for the figure and a different ability you can unlock in game, basically. And Gilgrunt, in particular, is notorious for getting a repose in every single game except Imaginators. So, you've got 4 different Gilgrunts that all play exactly the same but have different figures. Superchargers introduced another Gilgrunt, but Superchargers had returning Skylanders get all new movesets, basically. And then, not counting the variants and everything, so it's like adding yet another one to that pile. I'm not just talking about Guildborne specifically. I'm just talking about like adding more repos to the collection. I think might rub people the wrong way, unless you radically overhauled their move sets, kind of like what Superchargers did, which I'm not opposed to. I think that would be a good idea, but it would be a lot more work.
When would this new Skylanders project release? Well, we know Toys for Bob is currently developing something with a Microsoft IP in it. It may be
Wait, what?
Skylanders, but Spyro 4 is sadly more likely for 2024 to 2025, which isn't a bad thing, by the way. But after Spyro 4, it's time for a Skylanders revival. This
Um, in theory, I would say that because of the thematic ties between Spyro and Skylanders, it would make sense to use Spyro 4 to springboard a Skylanders revival. But Spyro fans hated Skylanders, and Skylanders fans hate Spyro fans for hating Skylanders. And Spyro has been, like, nothing but a liability to this series since, like, day one. Like, he got redesigned for some reason. I still honestly don't know why they do that. Why they did that? I don't have a problem with his redesign, but I know that like it was a really sore point for classic Spyro fans. I can see where they're coming from, I suppose. But yeah, they didn't like that. And then in Japan, where like the Spyro games didn't do so well, Skylanders also didn't sell well, mainly just because they associated it with Spyro. I feel like Spyro's adventure, fittingly enough, is the most tied to Spyro lore. Like there are more characters that resemble Spyro characters from the classic games and whatnot, and since then, the series has kind of tried to make Skylanders Spyro his own thing. On the one hand, he's an important character for Skylanders. Like Academy has him as the main character. He's an NPC in Imaginators. He's consistently got reposes down the line. But it feels like they're also trying to distance Skylanders from other Spyro stuff, just in general. So I don't know how they'd want to play that.
This will most likely happen between 2025 and 2026, which sounds far away, but we've got to be patient, and once this new Skylanders game is out, we have to support it with all our hearts. And
Yeah, I mean, I fully plan to support any new Skylanders project, but I think 2025 to 2026 is kind of. Oh god, Imaginators. If it does come out in 2026, it would have been 10 years after Imaginators. Time isn't real, I swear to God. But yeah, with that in mind, I mean, if you start small, like if you start with a remaster, which is easy enough to put together, and then start with a smaller, like original game after the remaster, like something on the scale of Giants per se, put together in a year, one of the most beloved Skylanders games, gets a lot right. If you did that, you could pretty easily ensure like more safety for future Skylanders products down the line. So I mean, I guess there's no reason to say it couldn't be soon. Like if you just put that together quickly, that's possible. And I mean, again, the U2's line is coming out next year early, so who's to say there isn't something coming down the line for 2025, 2026? Huh, yeah, I mean, I guess that is possible. Go figure.
thank you for watching this video.
Oh, that's it.
As a reminder,
Good video. I mean, I think I've said all I need to say. I think Takodino said all they need to say. Hey, here's to more Skylander stuff, hopefully in 2025 to 2026. See everybody later.